So, well, let's get into your life. Let's get into your work. Thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, gosh, absolutely, man.
So, with what you do, we're going on the 5 year anniversary of this pandemic. That was such a huge shapeshifter for all of us. How much of what you had to go through and live through on the planet affected the way that you do things now in your life?
Mm,
Well, here's the thing, Joe. The type of work that we do actually correlates really well with
yeah.
the pandemic. We do something called solo retreats. We have a retreat coaching and mastermind company, and we help people go in solitude and find their inner voice, cut through the noise, and get clarity out of their day. They do things like self reflection, self discovery, and vision crafting. Well, during the pandemic, you were forced into solitude. And so, this concept of going into solitude to learn more about you is actually kind of fearful for people because they have a little PTSD around it. But sometimes life is so busy and loud and noisy with the external. You actually do need to go away on by yourself in solitude and learn a little bit about you. So, actually, it's had a tremendous impact because people already kind of have an introduction to it.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's been really successful
Hmm.
seeing people kind of what they're getting out of being in solitude.
Yeah.
I think one thing too, Joe, is the program that we do. We can elaborate more.
Yeah.
We're looking for a community. They're still looking for a community
Yeah.
today. It really derailed society looking for a community, particularly men. I think we've found more. Our program leans like 60-40 men today. And community was everything.
Yeah.
So a back end part of our program is they go on this self-guided solo retreat.
Yeah.
They're typically overwhelmed. They're stressed. Something is holding them back. There's a limiting belief. So they go on the solo retreat. We kind of help them rewire all of that, learn who they are and why they're the way they are. But then they come back and we surround them with a community of like-minded people that have
Yeah.
gone through the same experience that they've already gone through, the solo retreat.
Right.
And it creates self-confidence. And a lot of people either introverted or they've developed being introverted because of the pandemic. They don't feel confident stepping into a new mastermind, a new group, a new meetup.com, a new retreat. So this is a cool way to kind of integrate them with that
Yeah.
foundation of self-confidence.
That's so cool. The one thing I'm thinking about while you were talking about the retreat and getting to a solitude place is a part of that matrix is meditation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's a part of the whole mental health thing now. And I'm listening to an interview with Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers. They're at Skywalker Ranch at George Lucas's house, which was the basis of all of the movies. And he was talking about meditation. And sometimes I think people think it's a mystery. Like, how do you get there? Do you sit in a quiet room? How do you do it? And it's the way he broke it down was totally interesting. He said, we spend most of our life in a meditative space. We think about our family, we think
Yep.
about our friends, what's important. We're already meditating. And it took Campbell to like break that down to me because sometimes I think it's this mysterious realm of things, but it really is like what you say. Sometimes you have to exit stage left to understand what the actual stage feels like or should feel like.
Yeah.
So true.
Love that.
That's really cool. I love that. Meditation is always kind of a dark art for a lot of people when they get into it. It's like, to your point, why am I doing that? Why am I sitting still? Why am I not doing
People
something or
feel like they're not
engaging?
having, it's not
It's not
productive.
productive. But at that same time, what I've learned from it is the practice of honing your focus. We're so impacted by stimulus and we're constantly being pulled and nagged and so pulling your energy away. When you ground that energy within yourself, you're creating that muscle of focus. And when you can take that and it ripples into everything you're doing throughout your day and really your career.
When I was a kid growing up, my dad went away for a few days and I never knew why.
Hmm.
Um, And years later, there was a picture of black and white on the wall, and he had a Catholic background, so it was kind of this home where I think he needed to get away and kind of recalibrate. But I always remember, even right now, you talking about this. I remember all the pictures of these dudes. It was all male, and
Hmm.
all of them in this picture, and you could just see a level of them that I think was in relief that they
Oh,
had
wow.
this place. You know what I'm saying? Like you could see that there was things they were working through. So when you're talking about this tapestry of healing and getting away, it's so foundational. And I think, how do people get to a point where they recognize they need to do this? What's the moment where they're like, I'm reaching out to you and I need this?
Yeah. So A lot of times it takes having the conversation. A lot of people don't realize they get so overwhelmed and there's so much noise in their life. It usually takes someone reaching out. But a lot of times we find people just naturally either have encouragement for other people from other people, or they hear it from like a book, a podcast, or something like that. The big thing though at the end of it is the recognition isn't the important part. Once you have that, it's giving yourself the permission to actually take care of it.
Yeah.
That's when people get more stuck. Everyone has their issues. Everyone's dealing with crap. Everyone's having their hard days and everybody's overwhelmed and life is chaos. But giving yourself the permission after that recognition is the most important thing because most people don't value themselves enough to do that. They feel like they need to continue to show up for others, but the only way to show up for others is if you show up for yourself first.
Mhm. I think to add a little bit of color to that, looking yourself in the mirror is hard to do in the first place. But then looking yourself in the mirror and saying, man, Joe, I do have a problem. I do have something that I haven't tackled and it continues to fester and resurface. That's a great opportunity for somebody to be like, yeah, I should probably spend some time, listen to that inner voice again or hear it again. So that's a great for particularly for men. We have this ego wall and this lacking of vulnerability. And when we can confront that, like Kyle said, permission and feeling worthy, not feeling selfish and not feeling guilty that you're taking this time away from your family, you're really coming back to show up better for them and any stakeholder in your life. And then the last part of that, in terms of people that interact with a program like this, is identity shifts or chapters in life. An empty nester could be somebody that is looking for reconnecting with that spouse that the last 18 years they haven't really had that connection. A divorced person, somebody that sold their business. You know, Kyle's known as the watch guy. He sells watches, but when his company sells, who is Kyle? And that identity, trying to seek that identity is a great time for somebody to reach out to us.
So, for you to have this level of compassion for other humans, to present this option for them, there was clearly a seed that was planted in both of you early on in your life. What was the seed that was planted that made you two meet and turn this into an oasis for people?
Great question, Joe.
Yeah, yeah. This is where I can share my story a little bit.
Yeah.
November 7th of 2018, me and my wife had our first miscarriage. We were living in Paradise, California. We bought our first home together. We've been living there for 2 years in the Sierra Nevada foothills. And we were ready to expand to our next level or our next part of our life by having another child. And unfortunately, that wasn't in the books for us. And so there's a lot of mourning that happens with that. It's a death of a child, no matter how you look at it. It's very hard. The next day, though, November 8th, my house burnt down in the campfire. It was the largest catastrophic event in the world for 2018. I lost my house and everything I owned. My parents lost their home and everything they owned, and I lost my business in downtown Main Street of Paradise. And so, what happened with me is I got into a very, very reactive mode, really making sure I'm resilient and the backbone of the business or of my family for everybody. And I suppressed my emotions for a very long time. And that is a very unhealthy thing to do, especially when it's two very large traumatic events like that. The more you suppress, the deeper and deeper you go. You know, people talk about valleys and peaks in life. I was digging the trenches in the valley. That's how bad it got. And it got to a point, April 21st of 2021. I looked in the mirror and I said, Kyle, you have two decisions. Either you're ending it today or you escape reality for a weekend and try to work on the things that you've been suppressing for so many years. Because I couldn't even see, let alone what like the next month had for me. When I woke up, I didn't see another day. Like I couldn't even see what was going to happen. I'd do the dishes and I'd get anxiety over it because I wasn't maybe scrubbing the dish hard enough, and I couldn't get through it. And luckily, I chose option two. And I told Eli, we've been business partners for a long time and best friends. I said, hey, man, I'm taking off for 4 days. I'll come back, but I need to take off. And my wife helped me do some journal prompts and kind of just took off to the Oregon coast for a few days. And I came back completely transformational. I found clarity in my life for the first time. And that was the seed to do what we do today.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tools that we've learned throughout the years. Eli has, I'd like him to add to his story as well, to the story, but that question you asked, when did you recognize that? It took me to the last second of my life to recognize it.
Wow.
And somehow I had it in me to recognize that there's another option because most people, not most people, a lot of people don't see the other option.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And I was able to feel comfortable enough and gave myself permission because I knew I have so many stakeholders in my life, whether it's my wife, my children, my parents, my best friends, my business partners, my employees, all of that stuff. I can't give up on them. I have to keep going. And in order to do that, I just needed to escape reality and do
Yeah.
some deep, deep self reflection and inner work and discover why am I feeling these things and how do I harness that to move forward in my life.
Yeah.
Joe, I played golf a lot growing up. That was what I did. That was my pastime growing up. And when you play golf as a young kid, you are surrounded in a threesome, foursome of individuals, and most of the times they're older than you.
Yeah.
So as a kid, you kind of learn to interact with older people at an early age, and I'm thankful for that because of the wisdom that I was given. One of the things I was given was there's always going to be a better golfer than you. So I played at a pretty competitive level, but there's always somebody that's going to be better than me. So when I went through my stuff in 2021, same year that Kyle went through his stuff and went on his solo retreat, there was a 2 week span in the beginning of June where I found out I was being cheated on. My marriage ended in a divorce. I lost my uncle, who's this kind of rock and cornerstone and northern light kind of for me. And then our business crumbled that we had together. We had $4.30 in our bank account with 12 people on staff and payroll due in 10 hours. And all of this stuff in 2 weeks came to this like explosion. And I came back to that moment playing golf, which was somebody's always going to be better than you. At the same point, somebody's always going to have worse problems than you. And that was a great frame of mind for me to go back and be like, man, I can take two paths here, kind of like Kyle, which is deep, dark depression, or how do I package this up and show people and that there is a path forward. I
Yeah.
had no clarity at the time. And Kyle, luckily, he went through his stuff and he handed me this journal and the solo retreat. I was able to go do that and kind of reflect and find clarity again. And again, that point forward was like, man, we can influence and change a lot of lives. Not only the person, the direct student that we're working with, but the ripple effect of their networks, their families, their grandkids. Like it just ripples with that energy that they come back with after their solo retreat.
Mhm.
And that was the seed, man.
So when you strip away all these layers of being an entrepreneur and having your own business and all of the elements that go into it, at the end of the day, your pivotal moment is now your business moment. Because there's a lot of people that go and do things and they go back to their lives. This pivotal moment has become your business and your venture, and you get to do it with a friend. How good is that every day to wake up and to realize you get to give this to others and you get to do it with somebody that you're close to?
It's not work for us.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
There you
that.
go.
There's something that that I learned earlier on. I was like in college and I was peddling some juice with a network marketing company. And one of my mentors said, a lot of people in this room are extremely successful individuals. They're making a lot of money, they have real wealth. There's a picture and a personification that looks well. But the issue with success is it's not significance in life. You are not waking up every day creating impact. You're not making your legacy actually come true, and you're not living a life of significance and impact that way. So, once we started kind of developing this business, we said, this isn't going to be a business. This is our lifestyle and this is our legacy that we will be leaving. And every day we need to focus on how do we create significance in other people's lives. We are so blessed to be able to do what we do. But to add to that, everybody has the opportunity to do what we do. You do not need to be stuck in the cycle that you're in.
The company, we named it Peak Fulfillment, not because it creates fulfillment in others, but because it fills our cup. It creates massive fulfillment when somebody goes on a solo retreat and we debrief with them, whether virtual or in person, if they're in our town. In that first week, they get back and they're on an absolute high. I mean,
Huge.
you see a change in a person, and they come back and they say, Kyle, Eli, like the first thing they say, 9 out of 10 people, this changed my life. And when you hear that, that is what fills our cup. Is because of the crap that we went through, this program was born.
Yeah.
And we did this stuff. And this is how we did
Yeah.
our found clarity in our experience.
And I just wanted to add to that. The norm of society today is not hearing this changed my life every single day. What you hear is my life sucks. I hate my job. I
Yeah.
hate where I'm at in my life. And so if you're able to create a way for your life that correlates with your business as well, to be able to have the mindset of coming at the end of the day, every day you're coming into this mindset of like, wow, I'm actually made impact. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be through coaching or this kind of, there's so many different things that you can do out there. But what people learn in our program more than anything is they find their limited beliefs.
Yeah.
Is their glass ceiling that they can't get through that is stopping them from
Yeah.
doing what they want to do. And it takes a lot of inner deep work and actually listening to that voice and figuring out what is it that I need to
Mhm.
do next steps? What can I learn from my past that I can celebrate? What can I learn from my past that was really shitty that I have to deal with and really package that though and use it as fuel
Yeah.
for where I want to be in my life.
Who's been your hero? Who's been your inspirational bedrock?
Oh man, that's a great
That's a
question.
phenomenal question, man.
I mean, as cliche as it sounds, we're big fans of Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
He is just such an impactful, loud voice in this space. Bob Proctor is another one. Jim Rohn. Some,
I've been influenced always by by Jocko Willink.
yeah.
He has incredible stories, but what I love about him is he connects a story to a learning moment
Yes.
and then teaches that. So my wife and I were at dinner the night, and I we did a date night, and I just went through and I just created a bunch of questions, like just some fun, like hypothetical questions. And one of them was, if you'd have one person to invite over for dinner tomorrow night, who would you invite? And mine was Jocko Willink. Like it just was like the first thing that came up.
Yeah.
So that's where it's kind of rooting back to is
Kind of want to I want
inspirational
to
individuals.
jump right back into that. So
Okay.
when you asked the question, what was the seed? I really was in my mind. I was like, how do there's two different answers I have here.
Yeah.
There's my experience, or there's an individual that I had. And so, Bob Proctor. Are you familiar with Bob Proctor?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, law of attraction, paradigm shift in your mind. One of the main people with the secret. I was working for a company called Psi Seminars, Personal Success Institute, one of the largest, oldest seminar companies in the world. I was a security guard for several different summers and falls during college. And I had the opportunity to drive Bob Proctor by myself in a car from the airport to the ranch that this event was at. And it was 2 hours with him. I
Wow.
don't know too many other people that could have the opportunity of one-on-one coaching for 2 hours in a car stuck with this individual.
Yeah.
And I was like 20 years old. I was never exposed to any of this stuff. I was just told like, hey, just so you know, this is an amazing opportunity that you have.
Wow.
And it was that's where it just I mean the seed for just personal development and self-improvement and the power of the mind and what you can do in your life really sank in. I mean, he sewed into me so much for 2 hours. This young kid that he was just doing security and like I
Yeah.
don't know what I was doing, driving this amazing car for the first time in my
Yep.
life from the airport. And it was just such a cool experience. And if I can create those experiences for others as well,
Yeah.
that's the one thing I learned from that more than anything. As I get older and mature and do this business, if I can create that experience for others, where they're like, "Wow, that conversation changed my life," or that retreat I went on absolutely changed my life. That's where my significance. That's where our significance is.
So, as you mentioned, 9 out of 10 are telling you their lives are changed. But early on, what was the letter that you got maybe out of the blue, or the response that you got from somebody where there was a sizable change that you guys felt seismically like, wow, this is really, we found our calling. This is a big deal.
Yeah. It was actually, I mean, maybe your story is it was the first person we
It
had
was the
run
first
through our
person.
program.
It blew
It
our
was the
mind.
first person that ran through our program, paid full price, was in Connecticut, crossed the country, paid full price. He was a 60-year-old gentleman, way older than we are, way more wisdom, way more wealth, way more experience. And the imposter syndrome sank in like,
Quick.
God, dude, this is our first guy, like first client.
Big
We
podcast as well. He's a big podcast.
huge podcast. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Here we And he went on his retreat. We were communicating with him for the whole time. And he turned on the Zoom call and it was extremely emotional. And he said, Guys, this changed my life. And I had these goosebumps ripple through like the back of my neck
It was
hair.
emotional for us for
And
sure.
it was this moment from that point on. Kyle and I let go and we dropped every other business we were involved in. We had our irons at a lot of fires. We dropped everything within the next 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
We were out of everything and doing nothing but this because of that moment.
Yeah.
And it was probably the most impactful. And we've had a couple other great ones along the
I mean, a
way.
couple. They're all really, honestly, they're all that blow our mind because we're
Yeah.
not. These are the things that we're teaching and what we equip people with.
Mhm.
It's just stuff that we've done in practice.
Yeah.
Yes, we've read the books. Yes, we're certified life coaches. Yes, we listen to podcasts. Yes, we've had our own coaches, but that's not where most of it's coming from. It's just from things that we've done, and we're like, hey, this worked really well for us. Wonder if it would work for others.
Yeah.
Sure enough, it does. It
Yeah.
yeah, we've had people like come back and they're just like, I've had this job for 18 years and I learned from this weekend how toxic it was and how it was stopping me for what I want. So I finally quit it. Like
Mhm.
I came back, called and quit my job on the spot. Like just things like that where it's like that's a big deal for a lot of people.
Mhm.
Their career for one job for 18 years and they finally decide I'm done with this and they call their boss that they've
Yeah.
had for years, right? And so there's so much different. Yeah,
And
it's great.
other ones too, Joe, are like people find limiting beliefs about themselves. There's these rooted things that happen when we're really young that we don't even think about. And until you give yourself that space and that permission to
Yeah,
be in solitude with your own thoughts, digital detox is how our
right.
program runs. Those things fester up to the point of one person realized that they had a trust issue because their dad pushed them in a blackberry bush when they were 6 years old. And from that, and the dad wouldn't fess up to it. The dad didn't say, "Oh no, I didn't push you in the bush." So he had a trust issue that was built from a blackberry
Right.
bush,
Yep.
and he discovered that on his retreat. And then he was able to rewire that, and now he came back
Right.
just as powerful
Yeah.
individual. It was
Yeah.
wild.
There's
Yeah.
Stuff.
That
another
is fun.
individual that started breaking down his days and he realized he's been an addict for 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years. He didn't realize he had an
Mhm.
alcohol issue.
Yep.
And he came back, he's like, holy shit, I see
Yeah.
what's finally stopping me is
Yeah.
I'm alcoholic,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
so
wild, man.
it's wild.
It is. So speaking of 6 years old in that childhood realm, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream as a kid? Your
Oh,
dream life?
oh. Joe, I'm gonna flip it back to you after this too. We'll go, and then I want to hear what yours was.
Sure.
Mine was, I think I've told you this, a NASA scientist, a rocket scientist. And at this point, when
I
I look
love
at it,
that.
man,
I
I'm
forgot
just
that.
like, there is no way in hell. There's no way in
No way.
hell I'm gonna rock. I would sit there with like paper, and I was making these like paper rockets, and my dad walked in. I was like
Oh,
stirring
man.
some like rocket fuel or something. I was he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm gonna be a rocket scientist
That's
for life.
right.
And
Yeah.
that was what I thought I was gonna do. And
Yeah.
very far from that
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an actor or comedian or actor. Yeah.
Okay.
That
I
was
can
my,
see that. That's
yeah.
the thing. Even though they don't happen, those were seeds early on.
Yeah.
So rocket scientist. Is that what you're saying? I should just
Yeah,
drop that.
exactly. I mean, and you are changing the course of minds.
Actually a really good point.
Wait,
You're sending people to another place.
Literally.
oh,
That's actually
oh,
crazy.
Joe.
Metaphor. I'm telling you,
Wait,
right?
okay. Sending people to another place. It's kind of cool. I kind of like
That's
that.
very good.
Joe,
See,
what about
you're a psychological rocket
Right.
scientist.
gosh, this day is made.
We got to have a patch made. You got to have a shirt, a mug on the
Yes.
psychological rocket science.
Uh, I still truly believe someday I'll be an actor of some sort. I will get
Yeah.
in. Now.
Well, I mean, this is a stage. I mean, getting into this realm, this is a
Yeah.
stage, and what you're
Yeah.
doing, you're leaving a mark on everybody that you impact in a way that an actor would,
I
you
am.
know?
Well, the way Eli, this is actually a really good way. The way Eli and I break down our week is we have buffer days where we do a lot of hard work and we're on the computer. And the other days are called performance days where we're doing podcasts, we're doing our masterminds, we're performing, right? We're putting on a performance and we're showing up and with cameras on. And so I think it's kind of my way to live that out.
It's
Yeah.
true. Rehearsal and prep.
So I am a Gen Xer, grew up in the 80s, watched Chips, and thought I wanted to be with Poncho on the streets of California. Okay.
That's
That was, and then Cops came out when I was a teenager, and I was like, I'm good. It was like fiction and reality. I'm out. And then
uh,
I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. That was ultimately it. And, throughout the years,
that's,
yeah, so it turned into, podcasting and radio. So it's good for sure.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah,
that's
it's fun. It's fun how life works. So let me ask you this. All of the clients that you've had throughout all these years, they all gather in a room. You walk in, you come up to a podium, and they want to know the funnest thing about you. Whether it's a fun story, something they don't know about you, a fun adventure, something that you're into, and they're asking you that question, what would you say to them?
I got mine. I love this question. We actually had it. We actually did a workshop today with a business group here in town this morning, and we had two truths and one overwhelming part of their life, and it's one of the truths. Growing up, I grew up in Northern California in Santa Rosa, and that is where Charles Schultz, so the guy that did Peanuts,
Yeah.
Brown, where it comes from. You can go. They have an ice arena. You can go to the museum. They do all this different stuff. Well, my best friend growing up was Charles Schultz's executive assistant, and Charles Schultz shared his office with the executive assistant. And literally growing up, I remember playing like at Charles Schultz's feet while he was doing Charlie Brown comic strips.
What? You didn't tell me that.
Told you that?
No, we've been
Yeah.
business partners and best friends for 12 years. And this is the
That
first
is
time.
so cool.
No.
That's why Charlie's name is Charlie Brown.
What?
Yes.
God, Joe, you're just blowing minds on this podcast. This is one of the best shows we've done.
That's-
So much fun. Are you kidding?
No, I'm serious.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
totally
so
cool.
I grew up just hanging out in Charles Schultz's office, and we were invited to the funeral and everything, and we didn't go, but
Wow.
yeah. What I probably learned during that, you know what I mean? Like just passively as a child, who knows? But that's why I have such a love for.
Wow.
You probably didn't
Something
know.
fun. No, I didn't know that. Well, that just set the stage to nobody can.
Yeah. How about you?
So I get goosebumps when I touch velvet. I mean,
Okay, there you go. Look at that.
Not my fun thing. I would probably
a little styrofoam.
Yeah, I legitimately get goosebumps. I was on. I mean, I think a cool story, but I was on a movie set with Nicolas Cage and Lawrence Fishburne.
Cool.
A product company that I was working with at the time, I had a bunch of different products, but one of them was snowshoes. And I got a call from a director one day. I thought it was spam, and he said, "Hey man, there's a movie coming out called Running with the Devil. It features Lawrence Fishburne and Nicolas Cage, and we want them to be wearing your snowshoes during the movie." I said, "What? Are you kidding me? Is this real?"
Yeah.
And so I kind of played it out. I was like, "Sure, no worries." Like, they sent the sizes of the actors. I was like, "This is cool." And then I've always had a fascination for movie sets and how it's all filmed and how the magic is done. I just asked one day, I was like, "Hey man, I'm gonna throw something out on you, and I'll live with regret if I don't ask. Can I come down and watch this being filmed with my snowshoes? It would be a cool moment for me because I built these from the ground up, and now you're asking to be in a movie." And he's like, "Sure, come on out, man." So I flew out to New Mexico and jumped in the car with this director who was just a wild man, filmed all these huge movies. Got a speeding ticket on the way there. He was just ripping through traffic, and I was like, "What is going on?" Showed up at the movie set. They mic'd me up with all these like radios, and I could hear in the earpiece like, "Okay, actors on set," and like next thing I see Nicolas Cage
That's crazy.
and Lawrence Fishburne walking up, and there's a stick breaker in front of them so that they don't trip. They ran the stunt devils to do the stunt, and then there was a person legitimately in front of them in this dirt path in New Mexico breaking sticks so that they didn't trip and get hurt. If I was a stick breaker,
Yeah.
that would be such a great job.
And that's one of the names in the end. I sometimes will watch the credits and I'm
Yeah.
like, what is that? And you got Stick Breaker.
Breaker. God, dude, that would be awesome. So that was great.
And the other day, the realization of when you showed me how it's the scene from the movie is now the cover photo on Amazon or something.
Yeah, if you go on Amazon Prime or Amazon Movie, what it's called, and you type in "Running with the Devil." By the way, one of the worst movies that have come out.
Oh
in a long
no.
like I don't even know,
Did not do well.
horrible. But the whole tile, if you click on Amazon and type in the movie, it is my snowshoes on his back on the scene that I was behind the camera.
All right,
filming.
I'm gonna look it up. One real quick thing about Charles Schultz that blows me away. I remember when his last comic came out, he died a day after that. That's what blows my mind about him, about how much you can love something and how, I mean, I don't know what the circumstances were, but there was a poetry in it. You know, there was such a
really.
profundity that went, it's crazy, you know.
He was a cool guy.
Yeah.
So wholesome and humble, and it was
Yeah.
always let the kids come in. It was like me and a few other kids that got to hang out. I mean, this was like for years.
Yeah.
Like, for years.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
That's wild. So we've opened the door proverbially and literally to your world. If anyone wants to come into there, they want to go to your retreat, they have questions, any of the good business, where can they go?
Yeah, well, we actually get people started through a free clarity assessment. So if you go to myclarityscore.com, it's an assessment that we created that will show you where are there different areas in life you need to focus on to get more clarity, and it gives you a percentage of where you at out of 100%. Are you at a 55% in the red zone? And then with that, you can kind of learn the different things you can do today to make a change to get more clarity in your life. If you know you need more clarity, go to peakfulfillment.co and we can have a good conversation with you and get you set up on a solo retreat.
Okay. And I will put all of that in the show notes. Gentlemen, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking a minute out. It's been great.
Thank you for having us,
Thank you
man.
so
We
much.
appreciate you.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.